Sometimes the greatest betrayals don't occur in boardrooms or dark alleys. They occur in the kitchen table, in the places we trust most, with the people we least expected to betray us. This is not a tale of paperwork, deeds, or financial shenanigans. It's a story of taking stock. A family taking stock in each other, brick by brick, memory by memory, and along the way, that foundation began to crumble. Not due to outsiders, but due to decisions that were made behind closed doors, decisions that would ultimately come crashing into the light of a courtroom. If you ever trusted someone so much that you never doubted what they presented to you, then you know the heartache here. And if you ever had to swallow your own rage just to keep the peace, you'll know that throb in your chest as this unfolds. Imagine this: a judge, weary eyes behind the bench, leafing through papers that shouldn't be, a son's handwriting on envelopes no one saw coming, and a family torn apart by more than just disagreements, torn apart by secrets carefully concealed for years. But what if those secrets aren't so secret anymore? What if the one person you assumed had no voice spoke up louder than anyone else in the room? This is where the story starts. Not with yelling, not with shut doors, but with silence. A silence so thick it caused even the court reporter to pause typing. Because sometimes that silence isn't emptiness. It's the sound of truth finally making itself heard. And I want you to consider this for a second. How many times in your own life have you sensed that something wasn't right? Perhaps you lacked the evidence. Perhaps not even the words. But you knew in your heart. Families are complicated. Love, loyalty, tradition, they tether us. Yes, but they also blind us. And when someone chooses to take advantage of that, the wound it leaves doesn't just cut through bank accounts or property lines. It cuts through trust. It cuts through the very idea of what family is supposed to mean. This is a story of a family that lived in the public eye. Yes, but what transpired behind those headlines was agony. It's about mothers who sacrificed everything, and a father who believed he could take everything. It's about a son who refused to remain silent, even if it meant giving up the only world he had ever known. Imagine entering a courtroom and having your whole life spread out before you in folders and flash drives, having strangers determine what is yours and what isn't. Imagine hearing terms like fraud and forgery used not to describe corporations or criminals on the news, but regarding the individuals who once shared your dinner plate. That's the maelstrom this family stepped into. And this is the thing that hurts the most. This wasn't greed like you'd normally hear. This wasn't mansions and yachts. This was land, houses, the plain promise that what you build with your family is yours to keep. And behind closed doors, schematics were made to ensure that promise was kept from them. But here's the surprise. This is not merely a courtroom drama. It's a romance too. The romance of a son for his mother, powerful enough to endanger everything. The romance of women who would not remain silent when the truth finally came to their door. And the romance of family, flawed and battered, yet still strong enough to unite people against each other in their quest for justice. If you've ever had to stand up to someone you once believed in, you understand how weighty that choice is. You understand how your voice trembles the first time you utter, "No more." That's the sort of resilience this story unravels. Not merely in the courtroom but in hushed words between mothers and daughters, in letters penned at midnight, in proof stashed away just in case. And maybe that's why this story resonates so deeply, because it's not just theirs. It belongs to anyone who's ever felt erased, overlooked, or silenced in their own family. It's about betrayal, yes, but it's also about the courage it takes to face betrayal head-on. So I want to ask you this. What would you do if someone you cared about signed your name on a piece of paper that changed your life forever? What if the house you believed was yours, the land that you traversed, the memories that you established were all suddenly being signed over without your approval? Would you fight, or would you walk away? Those are the questions at the center of this case. And the answers did not come quickly. They came through tears, through confrontation, through the sort of truth that can't be ignored or sugar-coated. As we enter into this tale, I ask that you keep one thing in mind. Occasionally the individuals we think the least of possess the most strength. In this instance, it was a son, A young man who left behind not only evidence but a voice that would not be silenced by anyone. His words provided the spine for a case that rocked to its core an entire family legacy. You'll hear about judges who couldn't hide their disbelief, about documents that should have been destroyed but weren't, and about confessions that landed like thunderclaps in the middle of a silent courtroom. You'll see how loyalty can twist, how silence can become complicity, and how even those who thought they were untouchable eventually have to face the truth. And through it all, you'll feel the weight of what it means to fight not just for money but for dignity, for fairness, for the right to stand in your own name and say, "This is mine. This was always mine." This is not an easy story, and it won't give you easy answers. But it will give you something else, something familiar. The reminder that families are complicated, that love and betrayal exist side by side. And sometimes the toughest battles are fought not against strangers, but against the people who know us best. So settle in. Because what you're about to hear isn't just a courtroom case. It's a story of betrayal and resilience. Have secrets buried in boxes and voices preserved on tape. Of a family forced to face the very truth they spent years trying to hide. And when the last gavel comes down, it will not be merely a matter of who owned which land, or whose name was on what paper. It will be something else altogether. It will be about who had the guts to speak the truth, and who eventually had no choice but to hear it. So according to what we've gathered, Cody gave the green light. The attorney quickly drew up 2 petitions. One for adopting Truly, the other for Savannah. The language was cold, clinical, and stripped of any warmth. Christine was labeled geographically distant. Janelle was painted as lacking a stable residence. And Robin? She was described as providing consistent maternal care. The petitions were presented in Arizona's Coconino County. From that point on, the clock started ticking. It was only a question of time before Christine and Janelle received their notice. And once they did, the entire family would be looking down the muzzle of an emotional blast. But before they ever received those papers, a crack developed in the plan, and it happened from the inside out. In spite of it all, the Brown children were still close. They communicated, they checked in, and they maintained their own personal lines of contact, apart from their parents. And it was along this sibling grapevine that the first warning emerged. One of the older, boisterous children, probably someone like Peyton or Gwendolyn, both famous for speaking their minds, overheard an unsettling telephone conversation between a younger sibling. And that one call made all the difference. Imagine it, Gwendolyn picking up the phone one night. On the line was Savannah, shaking, crying, barely able to string 2 words together. Her words were in splintered pieces, the type of which you hear from a kid trying to process something way too big. "Robin keeps telling me she wants to make it legal, that I'll be one of her kids. She says it's just a piece of paper, so I'll be safe, and she can sign my report cards." Then came the words that chilled Gwendolyn straight through. "But I'm afraid, if she does that, I think I'll lose my actual mom. Like, I won't get to be with her anymore." Robin continued to insist that nothing would actually change. But Savannah didn't believe it. To her, this wasn't paperwork. This was her entire world unraveling. This wasn't happiness at gaining another legal mom. This was fear, confusion, a child repeating the reassuring words of an adult. Yet inside her instincts yelled that something was horribly amiss. For Gwendolyn, it was the first unmistakable indication that Cody and Robin's tale didn't ring true. The children weren't delightedly requesting adoption. They were being coerced. And it was leaving scars. The older siblings began to whisper to one another. Something was taking place in that home, something targeted at the most vulnerable in their family. And then, before anyone was prepared, the storm came. Christine's doorbell at her residence in Utah rang. A process server stood outside with a manila envelope. She opened it nonchalantly, until she noticed the Arizona court's seal. Petition for step-parent adoption. The sentences slammed home like a train. Within, she discovered Robin's petition to legally adopt Truly Grace Brown. The reasons were callous, each slicing deep. Geographical distance. Best interest of the child's stability. Authority for medical and educational decisions. It wasn't a petition exactly. It was a pronouncement that Christine no longer counted as a mother. And miles from there, Janelle received the same gut blow. Her petition was aimed at Savannah. Each autonomous decision she had made, living in an RV forging her own path, was distorted into assumed instability. Evidence they argued that Savannah was in need of being rescued by Robin. Shock became anger. Anger turned to betrayal. This was not merely a legal tactic. This was war. A declaration by Cody and Robin that nearly 2 decades of motherhood could be erased with the stroke of a judge's pen. Christine and Janelle's initial calls were to one another. Tearful, cursing, panicked queries. Did you know about this? Can they do that? What do we do now? The legal petitions were withdrawn promptly. Cody and Robin could not possibly continue now, not with indisputable evidence looming over them. To force on would have meant public embarrassment, courtroom defeat, so they pulled back quietly. But the hurt was already etched deep. This wasn't a battle about parenting techniques or household rules. This was betrayal in its essence, an effort to remove mothers from their own children. Cody and Robin hadn't merely desired to be the main family. They had desired to be the sole family. For Christine and Janelle, this was the vicious confirmation of all they had feared for so long. That last, flickering hope of co-parenting with Cody was extinguished. He was not a passive onlooker. He was a co-conspirator. The betrayal was total. After that, communication with Cody was cold and businesslike, conducted through apps, through attorneys, bereft of trust or warmth. Christine and Janelle, however, grew closer than before. No longer merely ex-sister wives, they became co-defenders, bound together in protecting their children from the man who was meant to safeguard them. The biggest tragedy, however, was the children's. Truly and Savannah had been manipulated. Their feeling of security perverted into a negotiating tool. They were led to believe that their love and devotion were terms to be bargained. And that betrayal cut deep. How could they ever feel safe again in Cody and Robin's house, knowing there had been some scheme underway to eliminate their mothers completely? The courtroom was never so quiet. Not when Christine testified. Not even when Mary returned in flames. But today, it was different. On the judge's desk lay a sealed envelope. Garrison's envelope. Sent 3 weeks prior to his death, postmarked, notarized, labeled simply, to the judge who will hear the truth. When the wax seal cracked, silence was shattered. Cody went white. Robin's pen clattered on the desk. Christine remained rigid in her seat. Because the first line of that letter wasn't sorrow or forgiveness. It was fire. This is my last opportunity to defend my mother and reveal my father. And that was just the tip of it. The letter had names, dollar figures, even a second encrypted message hidden in Garrison's truck, sent to Janelle. What followed wasn't merely family soap opera. It was reckoning. This wasn't for television cameras. But today the whole courtroom would hear it. In the truth, it was finally here. So let me ask you, what would you do if your child's dying words were capable of ruining your whole life? The judge pushed his glasses up and held the envelope aloft. For the record, he started. Calm and official. This letter was presented by Mr. Garrison Brown's lawyer. Witnessed, notarized, and authenticated chain of custody. It was written before his death, and says to be read out loud only when Mr. Cody Brown is under oath in this courtroom. That requirement has now been fulfilled. A ripple of shock moved through the room. Cody flinched. The seal cracked. Pages unfolded. If you're reading this, it means my father is finally being held accountable. Christine whispered something under her breath. Robin buried her face in her hands. The judge continued reading. His voice low but firm. I tried to stay quiet. I tried to understand. But when I saw the real trust documents, what he planned to do to Mom, I couldn't stay silent anymore. The courtroom froze. No one shifted. Even the court reporter's fingers paused. He rewrote the family trust. Not for all of us, just for her kids. Just for Robin. Mary's jaw clenched. Christine's hand shook against a crumpled tissue. A harsh cry shattered the silence from the rear row. He said everything would be equal. All of the children of each wife the same. But I looked at the transfers. I saw the new trust. My mom gets nothing. Not money. Not property. Not inheritance. Nothing. And he gave it all away for her. The judge's words thundered in the quiet. No one had ever spoken this aloud with evidence in mind. But Garrison had. The judge turned a page. Your Honor, this is important, he read. A second envelope is in my truck glove box. To my mother Janelle. Please go get it. Inside is what made everything change. Christine stretched forward, breathless, whispering. He knew this would count. The courtroom hummed as a bailiff departed to retrieve the envelope. The judge requested a recess. But when the gavel came down, pandemonium broke out. Cody leapt to his feet, tone snapping. This is manipulation. This is taken out of context. Christine lashed back, her tone cracking with anger. How dare you? You know what you did. Mary said nothing, but her glance at Cody, issy biting, spoke volumes. Robin gripped the table as if the floor were going to open up. And in the hallway, Janelle was rooted. A court officer handed her the envelope, padded, heavy. In Garrison's writing, her name. She gripped it slowly, as if it would disappear if she relaxed her hold. For the first time she cried. When Janelle finally came back, her pace was unhurried but deliberate. She no longer seemed shattered. She seemed determined. Like a person who had accepted heartbreak and decided to struggle. She lifted the envelope. The judge, who was seated once more, inquired softly, "Do you agree to enter this as proof?" Janelle's tone was soft but adamant. "I do." The judge slid it open very slowly. Inside there were typewritten pages, and paper clipped to the beginning. A tiny USB drive. His eyebrows raised as he read it. "This letter has several exhibits," he declared. "Bank statements, signatures, copies of records, and a recording of a telephone conversation between Cody Brown and a trust administrator 6 months ago." Cody sprang up, angry. "This is an invasion. This is my personal..." "Sit down," the judge snapped, harder than ever before. "You will not interrupt." Cody's face turned red as he slumped back in his chair. His lawyer spoke frantically in a whisper. But Cody shook his head, clenching his jaw. The judge took a deep breath, then started reading. "To my mom, I apologize for not being able to tell you this face to face. But you need to know the truth. And the court does too. You disbelieved me when I told you I saw the new trust on the desk of Dad. But I dug deeper. The new trust was signed the day after your anniversary dinner." Christine gasped, jerking her attention to Cody. Janelle muttered under her breath. "He lied. He said it was routine." The judge went on. "The trust only names Robin's children. Dayton, Brianna, Aurora, Solomon and Ariella. That's all." Mary gasped, hand flying to her mouth. Cody lowered his head to the table, said nothing. The words hit like a thunderclap. "Your name is removed from the deed of the Cody Pass property. It's now listed under a holding company. One Robin owns 51% of." Christine muttered, almost to herself. Oh my God. She wasn't ready for what came next. "And the phone call I'm including," the letter continued, "proves Dad told the trust manager to move all assets before anyone could challenge the update." The judge raised his hand. "Court, please play the filed audio recording." A click. Then Garrison's voice rang through the courtroom. Smooth, unflappable, recorded in a soundproof room. "This is August 11th, 2:22 p.m. Phone on speaker. Recording conversation between Dad and Mr. Elridge." And then Cody's unmistakable voice. "I want everything transferred to the new trust before Mary or Christine begin to ask questions." The room fell silent. Mr. Elridge paused. "Sir, you are already taking Janelle's rights off the books. Are you certain you want to do that without telling them?" Cody's response sliced through. "They will learn eventually. But I want it taken care of before then." Christine pounded her fist on the bench. "You goddamned snake." Robin shattered entirely. She covered her ears, rocking in her chair. "He didn't mean it like that. He didn't." The judge froze the tape, his tone serious. "Let the record show that Mr. Cody Brown directed a fiduciary to transfer assets in secrecy, and that he verbally admitted his intention to cut out several legal stakeholders from decisions about the estate." Mary rose, her voice shaking but firm. "He said we would all have an equal share. That's why I didn't quarrel over the Flagstaff house." Janelle spoke quietly. "He said Cody Pass was going to be for all our children." Christine spun around Robin. You knew, didn't you? Robin stayed silent. She wouldn't. This was no longer emotional. This was legal. Financial deception. Trust fraud. Possibly even felony concealment. And the judge was aware of it. He regarded the last page. There's one last entry, he said. The courtroom leaned in as one. The judge read aloud. Mom, you know you'll blame yourself for believing him. Don't. He used our love as a shield. He knew we wouldn't question. But now it's time the court does. Tell Christine to unlock the storage unit. The blue box. Christine went still, whispering. What? The judge spoke again. Tell Christine to unlock the storage unit. The blue box. Mary looked at Christine. Do you understand what he said? Christine's eyes flicked, pieces falling into place in her mind. Oh my God, the storage unit in Flagstaff. I had forgotten I still had the key. She spoke softly as if afraid of her words. We used to all just throw old things in there. Holiday bins, baby clothes. The judge asked, do you know what's in the blue box? Christine shook her head slowly. No, but I think I'm about to. The courtroom waited with its breath. Whatever was in that lost blue box wasn't mere evidence. It was Garrison's last secret, and it hadn't even been opened yet. Nobody slept that night. Not Christine. Not Janelle. Not Mary. And according to the emergency injunction Cody's attorney filed at 2:12 a.m., not Robin either. The courtroom had been evacuated following the audio bombshell, but the harm was already done. Out in the hallway, news reporters thronged. The headlines were already prevalent. Cody Brown covertly had wives taken out of family trust. Garrison's last letter reveals father's fiscal betrayal. But within the courthouse there was nothing that mattered more than one chilling sentence. Make Christine open up the storage unit. The blue box. Early morning sunlight fell across the dusty side of a Flagstaff garage. Christine stood in front of the older unit that she still rented, key held in one hand, flashlight in the other. She inserted the key into the lock, breathed hard and pulled. The door creaked up. Dust floated into the air. Inside the unit, piles of old boxes covered the walls. Xmas 2014. Dayton's school supplies. Robin's jewelry-making supplies. Mary's kitchen items. Gabe's baby clothes. And then there it was. A blue plastic box. No label, just there under a broken Christmas tree and a faded sleeping bag. Christine's chest constricted. She dropped to her knees, brought it closer, and cracked it open. Inside, a worn brown envelope and a black camcorder. She opened the envelope first. Photocopies of trust documents, but marked up, highlighted. Garrison had put a circle around all the changes Cody made. Every crossing out of equal split. Every rewritten line. 100% to Robin's legal children. At the bottom, Garrison's handwriting. This is what destroyed him. This is what... The judge's eyes landed on Cody, whose attorney whispered urgently, but Cody sat empty, gazing at the ground as if the trial was already lost. Then the judge dropped something even more enormous. Early findings from the forensic auditor. 2 secret accounts. One in Utah, one offshore. The courtroom gasped in amazement. Robin had slipped back into the courtroom, white, trembling. The judge addressed her straight on. Mrs. Brown, you're as the primary contact for the offshore account ending in 7742. Do you deny this? Robin's lips quivered. I didn't do it alone. Who did? She looked at Cody, then at the judge. I signed what he instructed me to sign. That's it. Christine jumped up. That is not true. You attended the meetings. Garrison said you assisted with the filing. Robin's voice cracked. He disliked me. He blamed me for all of it. Christine retaliated. He saw you. He taped you. The air was thick with the weight of betrayal. This was no longer a simple case of money missing. It was about lying, conspiring, and a broken family. The judge held up his hand. This court will be able to assess criminal responsibility in due course. But at the moment, we require clarity. He looked at Robin. Did you know these amendments cut Mary, Janelle, and Christine's kids out of the trust? Robin hesitated, then nodded. Her eyes welled up with tears. Christine breathed softly. That's all we needed to hear. The judge snapped into focus. I'm granting a blanket subpoena on all communication between the Browns and trust administrators for 4 years. Emails, memos, internal memoranda. And this recording, He tapped the camcorder on the evidence table. Will be focal. Cody sprang up suddenly. You want truth? Fine. You want the truth? I did not do this to hurt anybody. I did it to save what was left. Christine divorced me. Janelle dropped the vision. Mary quit all those years ago. Robin? She was the only one who remained. The women shot back, decades of hurt bursting forth at once. You rewrote the family legacy. Janelle yelled. You sold us out. Christine wailed. I gave everything. Mary shouted. And Robin, now crying, whispered. He said we had no choice. The judge boomed. Enough. Silence. The gavel came down. All accounts linking to the Brown family trust are frozen. Immediately. Mrs. Robin Brown will be under court supervision until her participation is established. Christine gasped. Robin erupted into tears. Cody stepped forward pleading. You can't do that. She's the mother of my kids. The judge interrupted him. You ought to have considered that before transferring $400,000 to secret accounts. This was not a family any longer. This was a battlefield. And just when it appeared the punches had been thrown, the judge dropped one final thing. A paper signed by Garrison himself only 2 months prior to his demise. It wasn't a letter. It wasn't a note. It was a motion. A legal motion. The judge's voice was weighed down as he cradled the paper. This motion, notarized and filed by private counsel, seeks the removal of Cody Brown as trustee of the Brown Family Trust on the grounds of breach of fiduciary duty, concealment, and intentional exclusion of legal heirs. Signed, Garrison James Brown. Christine's tears were now for pride. Mary breathed softly. He did it. Janelle sat stock still, lips sealed, shaking between grief and vindication. Robin shook her head, panting. No, he wouldn't hate you this much. He wouldn't. But Cody simply stood there, white, empty, a shadow of the man he once pretended to be. The judge went on. According to state law, this court has a duty to review any legitimate motion concerning trust administration if filed by a legal heir. Garrison, being an adult child and beneficiary, falls into this category. Cody had found his voice at last, strained and broken. He's gone. He's not here to explain this. But Christine stood up, her voice firm, burning. He explained it in writing, in video, in detail. Cody burst, his voice raw with rage. What more do you want? He was yelling now, his rage blinding him. The judge banged the gavel. That's enough. This was not a family issue anymore. It was not about failed marriages or wounded egos. This was about financial misbehavior, legal obligation, and one son's final stand against the man who erased him. The judge turned the page of the motion and began reading. Mr. Brown states he personally witnessed the shredding of early trust documents in the family garage. Present during this act was Robin Brown, on a weekend when other family members were out of town. Christine's eyes shot wide. He what? Janelle leaned forward. That weekend, I was in Vegas. They told me they were just spring cleaning. Mary's voice cut like ice. He burned it all. The judge kept reading. The motion included sworn testimony, photographs of partially burned trust pages, and notarized correspondence with a former attorney. Then he paused. One section contains an email from a bank manager confirming that trust amendment paperwork was submitted under unusual urgency, bypassing review procedures, and authorized under Robin Brown's signature. Gasps filled the courtroom. Robin's knees almost buckled. Her attorney grabbed her to steady her, but her voice trembled. I didn't understand what it was. He said it was tax information, that we were making it easier. Christine's temper flared. So why didn't you say anything? Robin's response was little more than a whisper. Because, he told me not to. Robin was no longer the favored wife at that moment. She was a witness, possibly even a co-conspirator. The judge signed the motion over to the clerk. This is a valid document. I am opening up proceedings to see if Mr. Cody Brown shall be discharged as trustee effective immediately, subject to investigation. Cody leapt to his feet, thumping both fists on the table. This is crazy. This is my family, my heritage. Mary stood up slowly, her voice firm but icy. No, Cody, this is what you took from us. The judge gestured to the bailiff. Remove Mr. Brown from the room for now. Cody's expression contorted in shock. You're kicking me out of my own trust hearing. The judge did not flinch. You've been charged with fraud. Until this case comes up for review, you are prohibited from controlling any family assets. Cody appealed frantically to Robin. Say something. But Robin remained quiet. She had already spoken enough, and now what she had not spoken would be turned on them both. The bailiff placed a hand on Cody's shoulder. He brushed it away but exited nonetheless, dragging himself like one bearing the rubble of an empire. The heavy door closed with a clang. The room sighed. The judge stared at the women. This court will reopen in 48 hours to examine all blue box, camcorder, financial and previous emails. He jabbed one at a time. Miss Janelle Brown, get ready to testify regarding property rights and past trust agreements. Miss Mary Brown, your concealment testimony will be entered in evidence. And Miss Christine Brown, you will produce the complete contents of the blue box, including all computer files. They nodded in silence. The judge rose, then said something that was not expected. This is the most complicated case of family trust misuse I've ever had to deal with. And I've dealt with monsters. But what makes it so different is that it was all done under the pretense of unity. That makes it more sinister than anything. With that, he exited the room in silence. Christine moved close to Mary. Do you think we'll win? Before anybody could respond, the courtroom screen flashed. A message came up. In Garrison's script, I left a backup, just in case. Utah Safety Box Locker 119B. Janelle's mouth fell open. That's the old storage vault by his first apartment building. He never let anyone get close to it. Christine's eyes narrowed. What else did he leave? Because by then they realized. Garrison hadn't left just revealing betrayal. He had set up the endgame. A few days hence, Christine was outside a Salt Lake City storage complex, holding a rusting key discovered among Garrison's things. Her intuition said this wasn't a spare. It was the last card he intended them to play. The manager assured her the name was correct. Locker 119B had not been accessed since the previous summer. Christine inserted the key. The door groaned open. There was nothing inside but a metal shelf. On top of it, one black fireproof case. A note in Garrison's handwriting taped to the top. If they're still lying, open this. Christine stood still. The words weren't addressed to her. They were addressed to all of them. To every wife betrayed. To every sibling discarded. She walked the case directly to the courthouse. No call. No notice. Just walked in, clutching it as if it were holy. In less than an hour, the judge had called the courtroom back into session. The gallery was full. Mary and Janelle had flown back in. Robin sat quietly in the corner, lawyered over, deathly pale. Cody was still not allowed in. The judge waited as Christine came up. Miss Brown, you think what's in there will be helpful to the court? She nodded. I do. He waved his hand. Go ahead. She opened the case. In it, a fat bound folder, a flash drive, and an envelope with a seal. The judge opened the folder first. His expression closed. This is. He hesitated. Handed it to the clerk. Enter under seal. Prepare duplication immediately. Christine surrendered the flash drive. Then the letter to the court, written 2 months prior to Garrison's death. The judge read in silence. Then out loud. If you're reading this, they're still pretending. Which means you need proof. This is everything. Page by page. The folder yielded printed emails, internal messages among Cody, Robin, and an estate planner since 2017. In one, Cody had written, we need the asset transfer done prior to the show ending. I do not want Mary inquiring about her equity as she exits. In another, Robin responded, we will have to record a grant deed covertly. If questioned by the others, can we tell them it's for tax purposes? The judge's tone became stern. These messages illustrate obvious intent to hide, exclude, and transfer property beyond the knowledge of legal stakeholders. Mary stood up. 2017. That's when I inquired about renting on my own. Christine breathed softly. That's when it began. Robin dropped her head. She didn't have any defense left. Janelle broke the silence, her tone firm. So that was the intention all along. The judge nodded curtly. There's more. He held up a notarized paper. The registration of a shell company named Juniper Equity Holdings. Owner Robin Sullivan Brown. Registered in Nevada. Same one now owning the deeds to Coyote Pass. Christine's knees went weak. Oh my God. Juniper, that's the name I read on the mailbox behind the shed. Mary stared hard at Robin. You lied to our faces. Again and again. Robin's attorney stood. My client denies having knowledge of the extent of these filings. The gavel on the judge's desk cracked. Your client was the owner of the company, and Cody Brown resold land in her name. Robin's voice shook. I didn't. But the walls were closing in. The paper trail was overwhelming. The courtroom had become accustomed to tension, but nothing could prepare them for what was about to follow.